ask for a moment of silence in recognition of the passing of Charlie Moran, John Kittredge, Eleanor Philbin, and also it seems to me that there's a lot of families grieving right now. There were a lot of accidents and deaths in town. So in honor of those individuals and those families, I'd like to add them to our thoughts and prayers for a moment of silence. Okay. First order of business is public comment. There being none, review of minutes for August 21st.
Mr. Chair, I move we accept the minutes of August 21st, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next item on our agenda is change of manager application, Clinton Lodge of Elks, 1306, Ryan Roulard, proposed manager of record for license. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the application to appoint Ryan Rouliard as manager of record and new board of director for the liquor license held by the Clinton Lodge of Elks, number 1306 at 128 School Street in Clinton.
Is there a second?
Second.
There any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up is a discussion of our goals and objectives. We each, I guess.
We're there.
Yeah, we each have the ones presented by some of the members in our hands. Mike, if you want to start and just highlight the things that you have of concern.
Oh, mine were very simple. That we formalize our commitment to improve our sidewalks by formally stating the goal of cleaning all town-owned or controlled sidewalks this coming winter, and that we consider options for increasing participation in and the clarity of the proceedings of town meeting. And by that, I'm talking about maybe getting versions of the warrant and budget out, at least in electronic format, a little earlier, with the caveat that these are not final documents, et cetera. And looking at things like Saturday town meetings or providing babysitting services or things like that. Those are the two things I suggested.
John?
Mr. Chairman, I plan a meeting next week with Mr. Ward. I'd like to get together with the board after we get a formal list of the abandoned property and the tax title property. Some of it we've been sitting on way too long. We have a half dozen pieces of property which is in the town's name now. I'm quite sure we don't want to be real estate brokers. We're going to look the best way to dispose of the property. I'd like to have that all done hopefully next week.
Okay, John? Sean?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Jakonski. Snow removal was the first one we talked about moving forward with that. I just want to make sure that we continue to talk to the DPW superintendent and the police chief about figuring out what our responsibilities are going to be, what the expectations are for the public in general, and how we're going to go about executing that. So that was my number one. Something I think we should start thinking about is how we handle cannabis moving forward. I was at our last MMA conference in January. Someone brought up a great point that we're negotiating host agreements now for 5 years, and they're generally giving us a store. But in 5 years, when we have to show them what that 3% went to as far as public safety added costs or health-related costs, the onus is going to be on us to prove that we actually use that money for these things. So that's just another level of accounting that I'm not sure how we're going to deal with, but it's something we're going to have to deal with. Otherwise, we're not going to have the same leverage as we do now, 5 years from now. Also, I've been contacted informally, which I thought was by someone in the planning board, which I thought was a good idea, about maybe considering how we do the application process. I think a lot of people, both applicants and the general public, get a little ahead of themselves when we sign a letter of understanding or non-opposition. In that, maybe that's a green light for them to go forward when the planning board might have some realistic concerns. So I don't know, maybe it might behoove everybody to either, we have like a request for proposal season where we're gonna be accepting things, and then we have some joint hearings with the planning board, just so everybody gets their concerns out at once, so everybody in the public knows, people who are applying know what challenges are up against them, something to think about. My third, I would really love to make sure that we keep momentum going with the Advanced Life Support Project, the fire department. We approved money at a past town meeting for a study of the feasibility of that and how, if we wanted to, what it would take to implement that. And I'd like to make sure that we keep moving with that, knowing that Clinton Hospital might not be around for a while and we have to lean on private contractors and mutual aid for our more serious ambulance calls. Fourth out of five, I'll get this done quick, is just keep an eye on next steps for personnel. I know there were some somewhat unorganized talks about a assistant town administrator last budget season. If that's something we want to think about, I'd love to make sure we do that before we did last year. And the last one was dovetailing a little bit on Mr. Busno, just making sure that we look at, I was more focused on the two, I guess our marquee junk properties, developing a plan for Gene's Auto in time for, if we need money for a town meeting, to develop that, and to clean up, continue to clean up at Supernaut, and also, I just want to make sure we're ready for town meeting if we need money for these projects to keep going. So that would be my fifth.
Ed, I'm gonna save you for last.
Okay.
You got the longest list,
I've-
if you don't mind.
I've boiled it down.
Yep. I'm supportive of most of what I've already heard here tonight, and I believe a lot of this is already in subcommittees. Enhancing
Right,
town
we are
meeting
looking at, yeah.
is one. I'm not sure if walkability and,
We got to assign that to somebody.
that's a,
Yeah.
but wasn't the snow removal already assigned?
I mean, we talked about it as far as like sending out mailings and stuff to Marcom, but I just want to make sure, I don't know who's responsible. It seems like Chris is willing to sit down and figure out what we're going to clean and how much it's going to cost. If that's marketing communication, I
just
don't know.
don't
Or is
recall
it-
if that's, you were volunteering for everything, and I
Right.
wasn't sure if that was one of the ones you.
It was. He did,
was.
yeah, he and I both volunteered for that.
Okay.
All right.
So that is already in
we'll-
the subcommittee.
All right, so you and I will talk to, okay.
You're responsible for draft, each subcommittee is responsible for doing the legwork related to the goal and that's already been assigned to them. I just wanted to make the point that a lot of this stuff is already being worked on.
Okay.
The two things that I wanted to highlight are liquor licensing, developing a policy if we want to pursue it differently than we have been with non-renewed licenses that stagnate and sit out there for an extended period of time. Do we want to have a policy on how to handle those in the future? And also related to that is following Hudson's lead in seeking state legislation to give us a pool of liquor licenses above and beyond the ones were allowed by the state for future use that would work towards economic development in the town. That's one, and also, and this is already in the Government Affairs Subcommittee, was reviewing the appointed authority for policy-making boards and positions, and working on the expired terms of those boards and finding out where we stand with people who are basically serving at will at this point. They were originally appointed to the boards, but we're just rolling along without appointing them, and there was a discussion about changing the appointed authority for those boards, and that's in that subcommittee now.
Right.
So those are my two things. Ed?
One, I had, a couple other people had this too, was either create a subcommittee, or it may already be a part of an existing subcommittee to determine the best use of the two of our town properties, the corner of High Street and Water Street, and the Supernauts property. As far as I understand from talking to Phil, at least the place on the corner, High Street and Water Street, he's kind of done everything that needs to be done, regardless of what we were gonna do with it. So now to that point, it kind of needs some direction on what we want to do, because what we want to do then will depend on the next couple steps. I'd like to talk about instituting evaluations, and the new human resources person can, I'm sure will be part of that discussion. Our only evaluation would just be for the town administrator, much like the school board is for the superintendent. But then with the HR and with the town administrator, they can create evaluations throughout the heads of various departments. It's more, if anything else, it's more used to identify any gaps and assist with any needed training, because we don't know what we don't know, and I think it's important. Evaluations are an important part of running a smooth operation. 3, the old fire station. I think it'd be worth reaching out to the schools and including them in this discussion. I'm from being from the school board, I'm skeptical on if they plan on doing anything in the immediate future with that property. And this kind of bleeds into my other point is, I think it makes sense to ask the facilities department to do a town-wide evaluation of town buildings to see if we can maximize office space. Right now, office space is a little bit limited at the town hall. There's a lot of other options, and I think it would make sense for that fire station, the possible renovation of it could be part of the answer to this solution. But technically right now it's under the school's jurisdiction, but I think it'd be worth reaching out to them to seeing if they would be interested in allowing that property to be part of Russ's master plan on how to maximize our space. I would like to work with the DPW to see if something can be done about the graffiti on town property. Right now, just on the street signs and on a couple of buildings, nothing major. I know I've talked about possibly looking into a project for the bridges, but I think that's a much bigger undertaking. I think just to start for this year, if we can work something up with the DPW for the graffiti on the town signs and the town property, that'd be great. A townwide disposition initiative, and this is another thing from being from the schools too, we just have so much extra stuff, desks, chairs, and I believe the town hall is in a similar situation in some portions of the building. And I know Russ is a proponent of working through a disposition strategy with some deadlines of just unloading some of the stuff and freeing up some space, because I think some space is being underutilized as just storage, for lack of a better term, junk, just because nobody knows what to do with it. So I think that's something we should look at. Parking enforcement on High Street. I know that's going to be a big part of it's a big part of the equation with the downtown restoration project, and there's been discussion in the past about how best to handle it. We've already tried a couple things. I'd like, maybe should we consider hiring a part-time, somebody that can ticket people who are violating those parking spaces. I'd just like to keep that on the radar. And lastly is something Phil's talked to me about, and it may be a part of the downtown restoration project, I'm not sure, but it's utilizing our existing parking areas and just making sure the path from the parking areas to High Street is cleaned up, is lighted, is maybe landscaped in some form, just to make the path from the parking to our downtown area more obvious and more attractive to people who are going to be utilizing either the St. John's parking lot or the Walnut Street parking lot. So I'd like to hash out some details of how that could be handled. Those are my goals.
Okay, are we okay with having Mike coalesce the highlights of what we've just sounded out on a sheet for us to work with at our next meeting and finalize this?
Yes.
I think there's a lot of commonality in some of the stuff, and some of it might be a little detail-oriented, that could be incorporated in a broader title for one of these goals and objectives. And we should probably highlight which issues are in a subcommittee already, so we can make somebody responsible for the ones that aren't.
Or Mr. Chairman, or maybe current initiatives that might address some of those
Okay.
projects as
Yep.
well.
Okay, does that work for everybody?
Yes.
We'll finalize this list of goals and objectives at our next meeting. Next item on our agenda is administrative business. The following list of items for the board's consideration and action. Late night closings. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that we grant late night closings for Saturdays the month of September 2019 to Clinton Turn Marine, did I get that one right? Crystal Cafe, Tees Liberty Tavern, Ringside Cafe, Spruce Street Tavern, Simple Man Saloon, and the Polish American Club.
Turn Varine.
That, I asked you. Varine.
All right.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Clinton Turn Verine, how do you say it?
Marine.
Varine.
I was always
Clinton
told
Turn
the first
Verine
letter.
is requesting one-day liquor licenses for Old Home Day and for events to be held at their outdoor pavilion. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the one-day liquor license for Old Home Day for Clinton Turn Marine, and for events to be held at their outdoor pavilion.
Second.
Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. VFW Clam Bake.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant the one-day liquor license for the VFW Clam Break.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Breakaway Billiards is requesting a one-day liquor license for a fundraising event that will take place outdoors in their parking lot area on 10/19/19. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the one-day liquor license for Breakaway Billiards for October 19th, 2019 for a fundraiser event outside.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Old and new business, WRTA transportation contract. The Worcester Regional Transit Authority has sent the annual agreement for the town of Clinton to provide senior van services through the Council on Aging. The WRTA will provide the buses and a payment of $47,041, and the town provides the drivers and vehicle insurance. This agreement must be signed by the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, before I make a motion, is the senior center director signed off on this, or is she good with this, or?
The senior director usually does not, it usually comes through the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
What this is just the agreement, the town funds the service, and then the WRTA will give us a reimbursement. What they're doing right now, they were initially gonna just do a 6-month agreement, because they're trying to look at how the senior vans are being used across their system. Some towns like Clinton are very active and use them quite a bit. Other towns might only use them one day a week. So they have this payment structure in place. So they reimburse us. I think our amount was, I forget whatever the amount was, about $47,000. But so that's the reimbursement they give us to run the service. So I mean, sometimes our cost may be a little bit more than that, but they'll give us that cost to run the service. We'll pay the employees, the maintenance and insurances, and then have a vehicle to run the service. But in the communities where they're not using all of that money, they're looking at maybe ways to redistribute that funding so that towns that are busy or towns that might want to increase their service, they could then get more funding to do that. So right now, it's only for seniors and disabled, but there also might be possibilities that if the town has needs that could maybe expand that to maybe do routes that take people beyond just the senior citizen population, that they could maybe divert some of this funding to, say, at Clinton, and we could maybe have expanded service to do that. So they're working on that this year. They're hoping to do something in a 6-month period. That's not going to be possible probably at this time. So it may be that the regular agreement stays in place for most of the year, but they are looking to drastically change this model going forward. So I know the senior center director keeps in touch with the transportation division of the WRTA But I know Deb, I talked to Deb about this, and generally it goes through the Board of Selectmen, and she's not as involved with the reimbursement piece. She's more involved in her budget piece of what she needs to run the service through the senior center. So this is something that I usually work on. I had a meeting yesterday actually with the director, that WRTA director, yesterday afternoon for a couple hours. We had a good meeting kind of talking about their vision in the area and maybe some needs that we would have here in Clinton. Maybe looking to see if we could expand a service within town, but then also maybe work with WRTA to try to get people to points in their system. Where right now we don't have any fixed route service, we don't have any dedicated route that comes to Clinton, but maybe trying to find a way that they can support us, that we could get people to, say, the Walmart in West Boylston, which would get you into the Worcester system, or the Whitney Mall in Leominster that gets you into the Leominster system, or to the Solomon Pond Mall, which will get you into the Marlboro system. So they're looking to kind of get more regional, to kind of expand. And he thought that looking at our demographics and our proximity to some of those points, that he thought it might be a good pilot project we might try. So we're going to continue to work on that. We're going to have some more meetings and try to see if there's something viable there that we can put together. So we may maybe be one of the beneficiaries that could maybe get a little of the extra funding if they redistribute to try to get more public transportation in town. So we did do, through the WRTA, a survey, and Phil Duffy headed it up, a transportation survey, not last year, 2 years ago, to try to see where people wanted to go. And the thing that's hard, like if you could say everyone has a direct line they need to go to, it's easy to justify a route to go to that spot. But we kind of have our hub here in Clinton, and a lot of people, according to the survey, they want to go here, they want to go here, they want to go here, and it's kind of all over the board. So how we can try to capture that into providing public transportation that could help all those people, but do it in a way that the system can sustain it, because you're going all over the board. So they have that data, they have their own data, they have ideas that we're talking about, and hoping that we can try to come up with a plan over the next year that could maybe help benefit Clinton. So kind of a long answer to this. This is separate. This is for the current senior citizen funding for the senior van, but it will all play into it going forward.
I just want to make sure they weren't cutting services, so that sounds great.
Yeah,
So,
no.
So, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the annual agreement with the Worcester Regional Transit Authority to provide senior van service through the Council on Aging.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Next item is Constitution Week proclamation. Ms. Jennifer Dickinson from the Daughters of the American Revolution is requesting the Board of Selectmen adopt a proclamation commemorating Constitution Week for display at the Bigelow Public Library and Clinton High School. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go
Authorize
ahead with the
Constitution Week
Constitutional Week.
proclamation.
Yeah, proclamation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Committee reports.
Mr. Chair, through a mistake of mine, we were going to have a cable meeting tonight. We're hoping to schedule, and it wasn't posted, so we're hoping to reschedule next week to continue our progress with the contract negotiation and looking at personnel and other issues. So more to come soon.
Anyone else? The Government Affairs Committee needs to get together.
I thought that we were talking about next Tuesday.
Yeah, if that works.
Okay,
Yeah, if
next
it's
Tuesday, what time?
Is there a time that's better? That's any time during, like, say 4 o'clock, would that be too?
4 o'clock would be all right with me.
Okay.
Tuesday, September 10th?
4 or 5, what's better for you,
At
Mr. Chair?
4 o'clock is fine.
Is that all right?
Yep, at 4 o'clock. So the Government Affairs Subcommittee meeting will be Tuesday, the 10th, at 4 o'clock.
Excellent.
Are there any other committee reports? Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 18th of September. There being no other business before us, what's the
Mr.
pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, if, may I just ask a question under, I know we just passed
Sure.
it, but old business. I was just wondering if, Mike, can you give us any sort of an update on the human resources hiring. I don't know if you've reached out to some of the candidates, and I don't know, has the planning board decided?
Personnel board.
Thank you. Has the personnel board got together to have a date set, or are they still using the existing date? I think it's the beginning of next week.
It's Monday, yeah.
Okay.
So they're using the existing date for Monday. They have other issues that are on the agenda that they had to send out notices, pre-notices ahead of time for. So that was already in the works and done, because they needed so many days' notice. So when I reached out to them about when the next meeting was, that was kind of already set in stone already. So they are set to meet on Monday, the 9th, September 9th, and that issue is on their agenda.
Okay. The only other thing is the next meeting, either myself or a representative from the First Robotics team will be requesting permission for, the First Robotics team is gonna be taking over the Ghost and Goblins race that the PTA usually does. So I know that they've asked for and been granted permission for, street closures and liquor license and stuff. So I'll catch up with Mike or some of you guys offline just to figure out the best way to go about that, but just want to kind of plant that seed in everyone that the next meeting I'll either myself, if I can do it as a representative, or if somebody from First has to come sit there to formally request it, the permission for
So
this.
we'll put that on the agenda, Mike,
Yeah.
for the next meeting.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have anything else to bring up? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, yeah, but you completely can goals and objectives discussion.
Did I stifle?